Will the groundhog see his shadow? What do you think? Do you think we're in for an early spring or more winter? Hi friends, I'm Aubrey from Crybaby Sentimental Homestead. If you're new to my channel, thank you for joining me today. And if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. So it just occurred to me, the Groundhog's Day is February 2nd. So what do you think is going to happen? Will the groundhog in Pennsylvania, is the groundhog going to see his shadow? And what does that mean for us gardeners who love to plant our spring gardens? So, story is, if the groundhog doesn't see his shadow, we're in for an early spring. Did I get that right? I did a little research because I wanted to find out what the Farmer's Almanac thinks. So, according to the 2025 Farmer's Almanac, the thought is that we are in for an early spring. According to my local weather, who really knows? Because just 2 days ago, we had a hard frost. We had to scrape ice off of our windshields every day. And here I was promising my kids, if there's precipitation, there's going to be snow. But then the weather went and made a liar out of me because it warmed up. Suddenly it warmed up. The ice melted and now it's raining. But the forecast has snow for next week. So, late frost, snow, and are we still thinking it might be an early spring? What would it mean to you if you have an early spring in your area? For me, I honestly wouldn't trust it. So I would not start planting things like really young little sprouts and stuff. I wouldn't be planting those outside until after my first frost, my first anticipated frost. Or my last. Scratch that. Last frost, right? So, after my last frost. The first week or two of May is when that's typically anticipated. Like, will be nice, beautiful days. And then all of a sudden there'll be a day or two that gets really cold, or a night or two that gets really cold. And if you have just set out your little transplants, then, sorry. Or if you just planted a bunch of seeds outside, that might not work. So, for me, I'm still going to plant things outdoors that are frost sensitive or very young. Those things will go out after my last frost. But a beautiful day, beautiful spring weather means that we get to go outside and play. And we get to play outside with our perennials. So I'm definitely going to take advantage of an early spring. Also, something I always, not always, but I often forget are things that need some kind of treatment that has to happen before things flower. For example, I have a nectarine tree and a peach tree that keep getting peach curl. Peaches are not really intended to be grown in Washington State. I'm really pushing the envelope here, trying to make them grow, when really they like a little bit drier weather. Our humidity is just, and how much it rains, and when the rain splashes on the ground, and that rain, it basically, if any fungus is in the soil, it's going to splash back up onto the trunk of the tree and things like that. So if there was peach curl, it's going to spread very easily in Washington. So I did a lot of research on how to save these trees, and I always try to go the organic route, and the treatment seems to be a copper fungicide. But even though it's organic, it doesn't mean it's safe for our pollinators, which means you don't want that on your plants at the same time there are flowers. So I've got to beat the forsythia. Forsythia blooms here before it even goes to flower. As soon as I have flowers, I'm going to have lots of pollinators, and I don't want to cause any harm to the bees. So if I have an early spring and I have a chance to get out there and treat those peach trees and nectarine trees with a copper fungicide, I'm going to do it. So that's my thought on one of the projects I'll be doing in early spring. Definitely don't want to do a treatment like that when it's raining or when it's about to rain, because you want it to set into the plant. You don't want it to be washed away immediately. Copper fungicide is very expensive. And so when I treat it, I'm only going to use it on the ones that I know have had diseases in the past. And I am going to be very careful that I look at the weather forecast and I look to make sure I'm not doing it right before it rains. And also, I'm not going to be planting any flowers around it because I don't want to bring in pollinators when it's received that kind of treatment. I have a lot of trees and other perennials that are currently in pots, large pots, small pots, whatever. And I'm thinking when the ground is workable, right? So if we get an early spring, that means the ground will be workable and I will be able to dig big holes and transplant some bushes and trees and all kinds of wonderful edible plants. And I've alluded to you guys before, I've mentioned before that I have a 5-acre property that's non-buildable, and my dream with that property is to plant it into an edible food forest that ends up being like a campground for my family. So we'll have, in my dreams, we're going to build little tiny houses on there that are not required to be permitted, and basically camp out spots that we lock up for the rest of the year. And so the idea is I've got tons of hazelnuts, fig trees, apples, pears, cherries, Cornelian dogwood, Coosa dogwood, so many things. I can't even list it all. But I've got tons. My backyard, the back side of my yard looks like an actual nursery. And like there's probably 100 fruit and nut trees and berry bushes that are in pots that need to be transplanted. So my thought is early spring means we're going to go out to that lake property and we're going to plant a ton of trees and bushes and have basically a place to go out and picnic and really enjoy ourselves. It's also going to be our bug out location should anything ever happen. So I'm a gardener, homesteader, urban homesteader, and a prepper. So making that property someplace where we can go and have fresh food and have a place to have a private picnic and not have to have reservations, I really want to make good use of that property. I know it can't be built on. That's such a bummer because I'd love to put a mobile home out there, maybe even live there, but that's not in the future for us. But at least I can plant those potted trees out on the property. And I would love to do some videos where I show you what we're doing out there. And if you want to see that, click like, subscribe, comment below. What would you do if you had a parcel and you couldn't build on it, but you could still garden on it? What would you do? And I've got some ideas on how I'm going to water my plants and stuff like that. And get some solar electricity out there. I've got a solar generator, and I think it was Oopsie, something like that. I can't remember exactly. I'll put a little thing on there which solar unit I got. But I got a solar unit with a generator, and I thought that's something we could bring out there. I wouldn't want to leave it, but I think it'd be really cool to be able to have some electricity out the property and make use of it. And if we have an early spring, then that can start happening soon. Early spring might not be the ideal time to take cuttings from hardwood plants, but when it's getting warmer and things aren't quite budding yet, but it's not so cold that I can't handle going outside, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. And it works. I've done it before. So I don't like to traumatize and stress the plants out. I don't like to do a lot of cuttings when it's raining because you can get the trees can get infections, and it's just more likely something bad's going to happen to the tree that you're cutting it off of. So, and also, I don't want to be outside when it's freezing cold and raining as much. Okay, still go outside because it's really good for you to be out there. But I'm going to take some cuttings and propagate a lot of more trees. I am so addicted to propagating trees from cuttings, especially figs and hazelnuts. Hazelnuts are so easy to root. Actually, air layering with hazelnuts is really the way to go. They naturally like air layering. So I'm going to get a lot of propagated cuttings and air layerings and so forth, and I'm going to take those out into that property and plant them. So really excited about beating the stone fruit to the peach curl, treating them and not missing my window of time. That happens to me most of the time. I've never gotten fruit off that tree because it struggled so much. Actually, part of one of the trees died back to its original rootstock. So it's going to be a surprise to me what it ends up producing. It's either going to be nectarine or peach, and I'm not sure what variety. But I'm really hopeful that I'm going to get something out of those. I'm allergic, but I'm growing them for my family. And getting out to that property, doing some cuttings of the plants I already have, and so forth. Also, I am going to be starting a lot of different plants from seed, some of them soon. And even though I'm going to be planting them out when I normally do, which is after my last frost, I'm going to feel more enthusiastic about getting started because of the nicer weather. So, do I think there's going to be an early spring? I don't know, that it depends on what the groundhog says. But our weather has been kind of all over the place. And I'm not going to bet on it, but I'm also not going to, I'm going to be hopeful. Because I love spring. Spring is just such a beautiful time of year. And it's like a fresh start. If it's an early spring, I'm going to be getting a lot of exercise, going on trails, and enjoying all these wonderful parks there in Washington State. If you want to see any of those parks, comment below. I did a video on the Mima Mounds last year in May, I think it was. If you want to look back at some of my older videos, I'll see if I can link it in the description. But I do love doing like little walk-arounds, different places, and kind of showing the world what that place is like. And if you ever plan a vacation in Washington State, you can check out those areas, based on my recommendation if you choose to. So with an early spring, that means I'm going to be getting outside and going to some other parks and doing a couple of videos on those as well. An early spring might mean that some of your local garden centers might run out of some of their stuff earlier, because when people start to experience nicer weather, a lot of the new people are going to go out and fill up their carts and plant those things, and then those things probably won't make it, and then they'll go back and they'll get some more. So if I were you, if you really depend on your local garden center, I would probably pick a few things up and also start some stuff from seeds. Okay, but if we have an early spring, those garden centers, they like to capitalize on the good weather. They know people are going to be filling up their carts a lot faster because people start to get excited about it, right? And they're not thinking about the first frost. They're thinking it's an early spring or the last frost. And we've had snow in May before. It's happened. It's not likely, but it does happen. We regularly have snow in February and sometimes in March, April, and rarely we do it in May too. So if people fill up their carts, all excited with the spring jitters, and they get out there and they lose those plants, what a waste. And then they might go back and get seconds to replace what was lost. And then that means that there's not going to be quite as much available. A late spring might be better in some ways in terms of being able to get your hands on those items if you are expecting other people to start your seeds for you. But You never know. Human nature. You never know. So if you're really bad at starting things like tomatoes and peppers, and you see those at a local garden center, you might want to grab a few. Highly recommend that you do not buy peas and corn from starts. Plant them. They're just too easy. Just wait until your last frost has passed. I am so looking forward to not being freezing cold. I'm so looking forward to that. Whether or not the gopher, groundhog, rodent, whatever it is, regardless of what it says, weather's weird. The weather's been finicky, it's been strange, and who knows if, it's like the old wives' tales, sometimes they're true, sometimes there's a nugget of wisdom in there. But if it's an early spring, take advantage of it, because that might also mean an early winter or an early fall. So, yeah. Anyway, you know what I say at the end of my videos. I'm not sure this is very informative today, but I thought it'd be fun to talk about our anticipation for spring, and see if you're gonna anticipate correctly in terms of what the groundhog, hedgehog, gopher, rabbit. It's changed apparently. It used to be a different organism that doesn't apparently live in Pennsylvania, so they changed it. So what organism do you think we should base whether it's spring or not? Honestly, I don't think it should be a groundhog. I would bet on the birds. What species of birds do you think mean spring? And I will tell you, I think for Washington, I think it's the American robin. Whenever I see robins, I know that spring is coming. It's very soon, and it's not likely to get cold again. All right, everybody, be good, be sweet, grow a garden if you want to eat, and I'll see you next time.